It's Friday. You're wrapping up for the day, and you get cold called by a line of business manager who is very upset that her very important scheduled automation didn't run, and she wants answers. You look in the control room logs and see that someone did a code promotion earlier that day and overwrote a key dependency. That's a problem, right? But that's her change management problem, and she'll need to figure it out. Or at least that's what you think until you tell her and she says, "That person doesn't work for me. Why do they have access to change my code?" Let's talk about how you should be managing access to your control room. Let me set the table first. I'll start out with an uncommon but really bad way to manage a control room. Everyone gets their own role, something like Matt Stewart role with all the features that I asked for. And this might feel fast and flexible in the beginning because you have a small team and different people need to do different things. But this isn't going to scale, and it's going to create an access nightmare that will eventually devolve into the next really bad way to manage a control room. Everyone ends up with the same role, one big role that has all the features you or your team might ever need. The only thing that would differ between users is licenses. And again, this one might feel fine when you're a small team, but if you have any intention on growing beyond a team of 4 or 5 people, specialization is going to become important, and in many companies, a requirement. Limiting access to what's required and necessary for job functions is a core tenet of managing control room access. And that brings me to one last method, where a well-intentioned administrator creates specialist roles for every combination of access and folder permission. Well, that one sounds way better though, so why am I saying it's a mistake? Let me show you what I mean. Let's imagine our organization has 3 separate lines of business building automations: finance, sales, and IT. Employees in those areas need to only interact with code in their areas. Someone in sales should not be able to access or edit finance's code. And they all have teams with business analysts, developers, and testers. If the well-intentioned administrator creates specialist roles for every combination, it'd look like this. When we count these, we have 9 unique roles to manage. Now let's say we unlocked AI capabilities and now have AI specialists in each department. We now have 3 more roles to create and manage. Adding 1 feature created 3 roles, 1 for each line of business. Now imagine a different scenario. Enterprise governance has declared that only lead developers are allowed to do code promotions. All other developers cannot. This means we need a new role for lead developers, and we need to modify the developer roles to not have that access. We're editing 3 roles and creating 3 roles. So what's the alternative? Best practices in roles-based access look something like this. We know what roles we have, and we know what access boundaries we have. Instead of a sales developer role, we should be managing it like this. Doesn't look much different here, but we have a few job titles and a few folder access permissions. Developer is a developer. The same features for that role are enabled across the org. The person in sales would only have access to sales files. By combining a sales role and a developer role, you get the same access as you would with specialized roles for every combination, but you now have far fewer roles to manage. Think about what that means. We just went from 15 roles to manage 5 job functions and 3 lines of business down to 8 roles. That well-intentioned administrator from earlier, we just cut his maintenance activities in half. And that's his world. What about yours? How many roles do you have, and do you think you could consolidate them down? Hop into your control room and think about this. Do you have roles combining job functions with lines of business? Let me know what other challenges you face with control room administration, or if you're not the one who manages your control room, send this to whoever is, especially if getting the right access is always a challenge. And stay tuned for part 2 of the series, while I'll take you through a control room to create roles following these best practices. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.